Hey guys, this is Hayes with CheatSheetPros.com. Tomorrow kicks off the second half of the NBA season. So I spent the All-Star break playing with the NBA cheat sheet, made some changes, had a lot of fun with it. It started off where I made 1 and 2 and made a third change, and that messed up this and messed up that. So then I got frustrated and then went back to it the next day. But eventually I kind of got it where I wanted. So I put together a rough sheet that's going to post for tomorrow. All the projections and everything were updated except for Fantasy Pros. They didn't have the projections up yet, so that's why you see some blank columns on here. But I wanted to do a quick video and kind of walk through and show you what the changes are going to be. So when you open up the cheat sheet, this front tab here, it looks pretty much the same. I did revamp the boom bust and the GPP algo a little bit. Since there's no Fantasy Pros projections, you'll see this is 0 for now. But what I did is I noticed the RotoWire minutes and the Fantasy Pro minutes were drastically different. And so I wanted to find a third site to bring in. So I'm bringing in the Fantasy Alarm projected minutes. And I was like, let's put them side by side so we can look at all three of them. And some people tend to go to one site more than the other. And if you do, that's fine. But you can also see the average of the last three. And so I put this in a sheet. I don't think I posted it just to look at it. And Roto and Fantasy Alarm were really close. But Fantasy Pros were off quite a bit. But again, it was only one day. So we got all three of them in here. That way you can look at it, see kind of industry-wide what those three are projecting. The player labels, this is fun. People love this. So I wanted to kind of tweak some of them and make the diamond and mini diamond a little bit more stringent. So here's some that were on a different sheet I was playing with, so you can see. And again, I've got a key that kind of tells you what the majority of these are. We're still going to have our diamond and our mini diamond. Those are going to be our top DFS plays. We do have a new one up here called Minute Value Pick. So this is a player that's projected for a big uptick in minutes, which is thus creating a value. So I wanted to put that in there. That's kind of midway down the list, so that means they didn't meet any other category. The popcorn is one that's new, so players that are popping in a high 5x hit rate with a lot of 6x, 7x games, we're just going to call it popcorn. That falls right below the diamond, the mini diamond. We got a popcorn play that I'm going to put in there. So it doesn't matter what their salary is, what their fantasy point per minute is, how many minutes they're projected. It's just someone that consistently keeps hitting that 5x, 6x, 7x, and so we're going to call them popcorn plays. GPP dart, these are the ones that might have a low minute, but they've got a 6x game or a 7x game in the last 10 days or so, so they do have some upside, but they are not real good for cash game. Hot players, I wanted to put this one in here. This is one of my favorite ones, and we'll take a look at what that is on the sheet. Low minute, low ceiling. These are the players you can kind of kick out of your player pool if you're uploading custom lineups. Limited upsides, kind of the same way. Industry pick. This is something the projections have them going over value, but we think it's risky based on our numbers and recent performance. But again, most of them are self-explanatory. Popcorn's kind of the new one, so I wanted to give everybody a brief overview of what those are. Again, we still have all the same DraftKings, our custom projections, FanDuel, all that good stuff. Now, the next change we made is to the DVP. So we had this percentage model, but it was based on some different stuff, and I wanted to flip it around a little bit. And when we look at the DVP tab, I'll show you this, but this is the overall just fantasy production allowed by the opponent team. So we just called it all, and I ranked it 1 to 30. So again, green, that's the players you want to target. Those are good. And this is specific to the position. Now, we're not breaking down the positions. We're doing something a little bit different. So we're putting point guard and shooting guard together. We're putting the forwards together and the center. So there's 3 sets. We're doing guards, forwards, and centers. The reason is point guard, shooting guard. Sometimes the shooting guard has a great spot. The point guard has a bad spot, but the point guard goes off. So we're averaging them out and doing guards, forwards, and centers to see if we can clean it up a little bit and track it the second half of the season. And again, this is just the total fantasy point production allowed, just to kind of put a number on it so you can compare like between these two, 247 versus 221, and then take a look at it from there. These are the same hit rate, 6x, 7x games, as well as our color-coded player tracker, which is awesome. 6x games are in red, 5x to 6x are in green, blue or less than 4.5x. But typically what I always do is I'm going to look back here. I kept going back and looking at these four saying, okay, well, who's got the most 6x games recently? Like, who's doing really good? And so I went ahead and dropped the column in here and called it the hot players. And these are 6x games over the last about 7-8 days. I think I went back to 8 days so I could get a chunk of games. And then anything 2 or more turns red. So you can sort these, and that's what these hot players are over here. So if they don't meet the diamond, the mini diamond, popcorn, they're going to follow this hot player if they've got a certain number of, if they've got at least 2 6x games in the last 7. I wanted to capture those separately. So that's something I'm excited for. All of this stayed the same except for right here. And so we're going to look at uploading custom projections and making your own projections. So typically we have a significant difference between minutes projected between Roto, Fantasy Alarm, and Fantasy Pros. So we have them all here. Now, in the chat group, if you're not a premium member, we've been uploading a lot of custom fantasy point production numbers into Cruncher to create our own lineups and find our own value plays. So to make it easy, I have it here where you can just copy this, paste it. If you just want the fantasy point production, you can pull it here. You can copy these columns, throw it in Excel, and I'm happy to do a tutorial and show you how to make your own projections. But this is your fantasy point per minute production for the season. For the last 5, here we see the changes, percentages up and down. These are always key to find players that are surging up or surging down. And then I love to average them out. So we have some players that use the season number. That's what most optimizers use. But if you want to be different, use the last 5 number and get a quick glimpse. So here you can see Allen's 1.01 on the season, but over the last 5 games, he's 1.15, so he's got a 14% increase. So if you use this number, it's going to put more shares of them in your optimized lineups. Now me, I like doing a 70-30 or a 50-50 split. So here the fantasy point per minute average, I put in this column so you can copy the player name, copy the fantasy point per minute average, and upload and have an average between the season and the last 5 and give you a good glimpse. Now, as far as the minutes, I wanted to bring those in here because if you do want to make your own projections, you can take a look at these and we have them available. Now on these sites, they do have the projections. Now this isn't the projections for Roto, Fantasy Alarm, and Fantasy Pros, but I labeled them as such. What this is we're taking the fantasy point per minute average, so it's going to be different than the season, by the minutes for the particular site, and then we're putting them here in these columns. So if these look different, don't be alarmed, that's why. So here, so for the Roto projections, we're taking the Roto projected minutes and the average fantasy point per minute. And then this creates the value for those players. Now, Fantasy Alarm, we're doing the same thing. We're taking the average fantasy point per minute between the season last 5, and we're using their projected minutes to see who they think would be the value. And then the Fantasy Pros, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the average fantasy point per minute, and then we're going to take it times the minutes, which here, their projections were not up the day early, so this one's blank. But typically, you can look across here. So, for example, these two right here, we can see, so Tucker, Roto has him projected about 6.1x if we use this model, but Fantasy Alarm only has him at 3.9, so they don't have him as a value, but they do here. And the last day of the NBA games, B-Chap or whatever his name was on there. One site had him as a value play, one didn't, and then he was a big value in an optimizer, but he ended up not doing anything, so that was kind of interesting. So here we can see, okay, one site likes it, one doesn't, but it basically comes down to the minute projections. So now with the third site, we can kind of look and say, well, how many minutes has he been playing over the last 3 games, and what does this site projected at? Are 2 of them at 25, 1 of them at 16, or is this one going to come in at 10? So we can kind of look and see some different variants. And also, you can copy and paste these and do some simple formulas if you want to average out the minutes and do a 70-30 split. I'm happy to help you with that. That's not a problem. But I wanted to make this more useful on looking for DFS plays, comparing minutes, and looking at fantasy point per minute production. Now, if you can't upload fantasy point per minute production, you can paste this in Excel, or you can just take these right here. So, for example, say you love Roto and you want to use this fantasy point per minute average by their minutes. Well, all you got to do is copy this column, and so you've got the player projections. So if your optimizer will allow you to upload projections, you can upload these, or you could do the one off Fantasy Alarm, or you could do the Fan Pro one if you prefer that, or you could, heck, put them in Excel, average them all out if you want. These are our projections here that we use. We use a little different formula, but I've got them here. If you want to copy and upload our projections, you can just do these two columns, and then you can kind of see the value plays, because I want to compare our value with what these sites are doing, and kind of look back, compare, because that's what where we're going to generate some more information. So the DVP tab, we're still the same over here. I believe this is the same, and then we had talked about revamping the guards, forwards, and center. So I left in the position specific if you want to see it over here, and then I broke it out into guards, forwards, and centers along with overall production, and just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. So for example, Houston's given up 251.6 points over the last 14 days or 2 weeks. That's the 30th most, so that's a good spot to target. And then this is kind of how it ranks when you break it down. So forwards, not so much. Guards and centers, they give up a bunch. So this will kind of clean it up a little bit. And then as far as I didn't like the way we had the points, rebounds, and assists, so I wanted to clean this section up a little bit here and just have the overall ranking for like rebounds, and then guards, forwards, centers, and so you can see a kind of a quick breakdown. So this is DraftKings specific, and then these points, rebounds, assists, threes, steals, blocks, this is just stats, so you could use it for either side and or player props. And then you flip down here, we did the same thing for FanDuel. We kept this in here. This is the fantasy point production over the last 2 weeks, so we pulled that in. And then we also have the position-specific DVP rank if you want that. And then I also broke it down for FanDuel only as far as the overall guards, forwards, and centers, so you can get kind of an idea. As far as the other information, I've put that on other tabs to kind of clean this up a little bit for you. Tiers tab, a lot of people don't play tiers. If you do, it's pretty much the same. I did update the DVP on here, and I added in the hot player counter. Everything else was pretty much the same. Nothing really new there. Bet tab stayed the same, didn't touch it. I love the way it's set up. Here, this tab, I did take off the last 14-day average. I was going to put some more stuff in here, but just to grab some other data and bring in the fantasy alarm projections, I needed to eliminate a tab, so I just pulled off the last 14-day stats. So now we have the last 7. And again, I cleaned up these and put all of the last 2-week rankings as far as what the team's allowing, points in the paint, threes, rebounds, steals, blocks, and free throws attempted, so you can get an idea of what the actual number is versus the ranking across the league when you're flipping through these and looking at different points and stuff that is allowed. Going on the price picks tab, we're going to talk about that. I didn't do anything with this tab. I did clean this up a little bit to make sure it was pulling everything, but I love the setup of this tab so we can look at players. Again, the Fantasy Pro projections weren't up. The Roto projections have been really solid, and so we're going to track the Fantasy Alarm projections, and we may swap those in here depending on. But again, we're pulling in our price pick lines as they're available here. You can see the hit rates over the last 7 games, and then you can see the specific last 7 games. So for example, if you've never seen this before, Sabonis points, you can see the dates of the games, you can see the result, you can see who they played, and you can see how he scored. And so you can see Price Picks released this at 20.5, or that's what it is right now. And he's been over that in 3 of 7 games and 2 of the last 3 games. So you kind of get an idea. Now, when players do miss, you're always wondering, was it a blowout? Were they up big? Were they down big? So that's why I wanted to bring the score in up here so you can just kind of see a win, a loss. Like here, they got blown out. They lost 136 to 104. So he only played 27 minutes and scored 12 points. But then over here in a more competitive game, he dropped a 22-14-2 line, playing 41 minutes in a game that was close, that they won by 5 and accumulated a total over 250 points. So you kind of get the idea. So I did bring in the minutes here because I always want to see, is a player playing more minutes? Is someone out? Is he on the court for 30 minutes and just not getting a lot of production? So this is like a crucial tab. This is honestly where I spend the majority of my time out of the entire cheat sheet. This is the first tab that I go to, if I'm doing same game parlays, player props, betting, this is the first tab that I go to. And again, all this information that we go over, I have a new tab here called the key, and this is going to show you all of the new stuff. So you can see over here, this is going to talk about bringing in all 3-minute projections. This is going to talk about some new player labels, and some of the new ones, I just put a quick descriptor for them. This is going to talk about the new DVP. This is the hot player tab. Here's your custom projections, the fantasy point per minute stuff that we went over. And then over here on the main tab, the different DVPs, I've got them all labeled out here with arrows. I figured that would be easy to have it in there. That way you don't have to go back and watch a 15 or 20 minute video. Now, everybody's favorite, the price picks tab. So over here, I just darken this out a little bit because this is just our combo grab that we use when we import the lines. So I just shrunk it down a little bit and made it less noticeable. But over here, we've got all the same information, but what I'm going to try in the second half here are these columns. So again, this is the overall just fantasy production the team's allowing. So it's not broken down to points, rebounds, assists. It's just everything they're allowing 1 to 30. So you get an overall ranking. So for example, if you're between these two players, you're looking, well, they're allowing the 23rd most just general production versus the third. So you probably want to lean to the 23rd one if you're trying to get an over. The third one, third least if you're wanting to go for an under. And then I split it up into guards, forwards, and centers. Now I did post a thing where we had point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center, and it was a lot of information. And so I wanted to try this first. We can always go back to that, but just guards, forwards, center, and this is just overall production. So for example, here you can see that Cleveland's playing Denver. Denver gives a lot of production to guards, not so much to forwards and centers or the big guys. So you'd probably want to target a guard there. You see Donovan Mitchell shooting guard. That's probably a play that you would be more apt to go with. The stud grade, don't pay attention to the numbers because Fantasy Pros don't have theirs, but this just brings in higher the better, etc., etc. Now this column is new. This is the prop specific DVP. So what I did, I have a whole bunch of tables in the background where I added up what the team's allowing, and I took every category that Price Picks offers. So I did fantasy score, I did points, rebounds, assists, points plus assist, points plus rebounds, rebounds plus assist. You get the idea, and totaled them all up, ranked them 1 to 30. So for example, Golden State's facing the Lakers. The Lakers points, rebounds, assist for every team. This is what that team ranks, just general allowing specifically. So that's one that you can kind of take a look at and see if they're giving up a lot of that production or not a lot of production. So for example, here Lakers are giving up the 25th most combo PRA, and then over here Philly's giving up the second least PRA. And then again, we got our cheat line as usual. We have our confidence percentage, our last 7-day average. Now what's new is I brought in a third website to compare projections. Now everybody loves comparing the Roto versus Fan Pros, so we have these two projections. So I brought in Fantasy Alarm projections as well. Now again, Fantasy Pros, they weren't up yet, so this one's blank, but now we have 3 different sites we can take a look at, and we also have our streak, our last 5, and our last 10 hit rate, as well as our game logs over here with green over and reds are under. We go the last 10. And then we are going to come over here, and the last thing I have is we have new player suggestions over here. So again, these are going to be something that are pretty much self-explanatory. We have the last 7 games or last 7 days they've been fire. That means the last 7 they've been over by a significant amount. Tough DVP spot. This 3 over projection means that all 3 sites are projecting it to go over. Good DVP. We got some bad DVP. I don't see any that popped up in here. We got some hot unders. We got some hot overs, just depending on the way the stuff falls. So anyways, second half will be exciting. A lot of fun to look at. I did put the little hot cold players here, and then these are the 3 different sites. So I'm excited to get this released tomorrow. And again, it's Thursday, so the sheets are free in our Facebook group, and I post them for everybody. I usually have it up between 8 and 9 a.m. and again before updated about 4:30. So if you want to give us a try, our premium group is only 50 cents a day, And we have a Facebook chat, sports betting, all kinds of good stuff. And if you just want to hang around and try the sheets out, join our Facebook group. The link is in the description, and play with them on Thursdays. Good luck, guys.